Hi, this is Kristen with Gateway Bible Church. I've got a question for you. Have you ever been caught in the middle of a storm? I remember when my kids were little, my husband and I took them up to Oregon and we went camping out by a lake, and we had spent the whole day down by the beach, and in the late afternoon we saw the storm clouds starting to roll in, and we figured we better get back to our campsite. By the time we got back there, we turned and looked at the lake, which was only like 20 feet away, and it was completely gone. It was just clouds. And then the rain began and the hail, and there was thunder and lightning, and then all through the night we just listened to thunder and lightning all around us. Well, we ended up being in one of the biggest storms that area had seen in like over 20 years. And we were in a tent out in the woods, and we prayed, and God kept us safe through the night. Next morning we got up and we drove around the lake, and there were just trees down everywhere and branches. We were so grateful that God had kept us safe through that storm. It reminds me of a psalm in the Bible, Psalm 107, and it talks about how God brings about this storm. It says, "Those who go down to the sea in ships, who do business on great waters, they have seen the works of the Lord and his wonders in the deep. For he spoke and raised up a stormy wind, which lifted up the waves of the sea. They rose up to the heavens, and they went down to the depths. Their soul melted away in their misery. They reeled and staggered like a drunken man, and they were at their wits' end." Have you ever been at your wits' end? I remember about 7 years ago, I was in a different kind of storm. There wasn't rain and thunder and lightning, but it was a time where I was completely at my wits' end. I was exhausted physically, emotionally. I was taking care of my own family and my smaller children. I was homeschooling one of them. And then my mom was sick and towards the end of her life, and she was needing round-the-clock care, so I was helping with that, making sure she had someone with her at all times, taking care of her home and everything that was involved with that. And I was just exhausted. And I remember the only thing I could do was hold on to that trust that I had in God, that he was going to carry me through this somehow, but I didn't see what it was going to look like on the other side, because I was just in the middle of it. Well, it says further in that passage in 107, in verse 28, it says, "Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distress. He caused the storm to be still, so that the waves of the sea were hushed." I remember during that time, I went down to the beach one day. I actually had a few hours to myself, and I just cried out to the Lord. And I basically said, "You're God, you've got to show up, because I don't have any way out of this." And it was only getting worse. Well, within 48 hours, he brought a solution and an answer. He heard my cry, and he answered by bringing my brother-in-law back into town to be with me for the next, what ended up being a month and a half. He said he would stay and help me with my mom during that time. And so I was still in the middle of the storm, but I had at least some help and someone to help carry me through that. And I think God is waiting for his people to be crying out to him, whatever that storm may look like. It's like that night when the disciples were in the boat with Jesus, and there was a storm that rose up, and the disciples were scared and they were afraid, and Jesus was asleep. And they go and they say to him, "Hey, save us, Lord, we're perishing." And he says to them, "Why are you afraid, you men of little faith?" And then Jesus got up and he rebuked the winds and the sea, and it became perfectly calm. You know, a couple things I learned during that storm that I went through is that when my focus was on God, instead of all the things going on around me, that's when I felt his peace and his joy, and I had hope, the hope that I would get through to the other side. But I think when we instead focus on all the things that are going wrong, the things that are scary and overwhelming and painful, that's when we get filled with anxiety and fears and depression and hopelessness. Because Jesus wants us to follow him, but we know that sometimes he's going to want us to follow him right into the middle of a storm, but he'll be there waiting for us to cry out to him. And then you need to get ready to just praise him. Because the end of that psalm says, in verse 30, "Then they were glad because they were quiet. So he guided them to their desired haven. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his loving kindness and for his wonders to the sons of men. Let them exalt him also in the congregation of the people, and praise him at the seat of elders." So if you're in the middle of a storm, cry out to God. He's ready. He's wanting to listen, and He's got the solution. He has the answer, and then we can praise Him knowing that He's going to carry us through.